Hi everybody, welcome to Analog, the show that tells you about things that don't happen on your PC. Today we are talking about Villages of Valeria. Now I know some of you might be going, oh Valeria, that sounds really familiar. It has nothing to do with the Song of Ice and Fire or Game of Thrones for those that don't read the books. It has nothing to do with that universe whatsoever as far as I can tell. So there's nothing in reference to like, oh, this sword is made out of Valerian steel and things like that. That doesn't happen. So what Villages of Valeria is a really cool city building and resource management game. It's 1 to 5 players and it only takes about, hour 45 minutes to play. And actually the single player mode on it is kind of fun for those of you that don't have friends to play with. I definitely do, so I don't need to use the single player. So I know Analog is still kind of a new series for everyone, so I'm gonna remind you guys, I am not here to read the instructions verbatim and tell you how to play this game. I'm here to tell you about this game. If you wanna know how to play this game, they actually have on their website a how to play video already, so you don't need to hear it from me. The neat thing about this game is that for how really basic it is, there's a lot of really good strategy involved in it. Every turn, the lead player, which is a fancy term for first player, gets to pick one of these 5 options to do, and each option will have its own different effect on the field. But the other cool thing about this is that after the lead player has chosen what they want to do, all the other players get to follow behind them and either pay a little bit extra or receive less of a boon, but they can also take that same action when it's not their turn to help kind of, build things up a little bit. The buildings themselves all have different kinds of symbols on them, and they also have these other symbols down here at the bottom. All these symbols on the bottom of the building are actually used for if you want to convert your buildings into a resource gainer like you have over here, and then you use these to actually be able to afford all kinds of different things. Over here on the side is what the cost is to build a specific thing, and then you have to use your coins to accrue the right amount of resources to it. You can play on yours, you can play on other people's resources to gain their things too. You don't have to just get stuck with your own little section of Valeria. The cool thing about this game is that there's a lot of strategy involved because you're not allowed to have the same building twice in your set. You actually have to strategize around like, oh, well, I can only have some of this, some of this, and some of this. The other part of this game is that there are adventurers that give you really cool boons either at the end of the game for points or they give you something during the game that's really helpful. In order to get these adventurers, you have to have buildings in front of you that have whatever icons match their prerequisites on the side. Once they have that, you can start recruiting adventurers into your village and they'll give you cool special abilities and effects and stuff like this. Now, this is the deluxe version of Villages of Valeria. There are 2 different versions. There's the deluxe and then there's the regular one. The deluxe version comes with a bunch of expansions to it as well that add some different gameplay modes on it. There's different buildings you can add into it, and there's events that will occur, which are really, really neat, and it's all included in one big lump sum. There's also a smaller version that just has basically what I have laid out here in front of you. Pretty quick and dirty to play. It doesn't take that long. The directions are a little bit wordy, but once you actually sit down and start playing it, it's one of those games where you're like, oh, okay, this is super easy, no problem. So I felt the same way when I sat down to play this. I've played through this a couple times. The single player mode on this is really good, and they even have a card specifically set aside for when you're doing your single player mode. Ideally, you want to have 2 to 3 players playing this, maybe even 3 to 4. I would say 3 to 4 is probably the glory number on this. 2 gets very competitive, it gets very head to head, and you're like, every time the other person makes a move, you're like, oh, you son of a bitch. Every single time. But with 3 players, it kind of spreads it out a little bit more and it's not so much like you're just trying to stab each other in the back constantly. So who should play this game? Ultimately, this is a pretty approachable game for just about anybody, even if you haven't dabbled out beyond, say, like a Settlers of Catan or something like that, or maybe you haven't dabbled beyond, Monopoly, that's okay. Some people haven't. But I would recommend this game if you're just looking for something that you can pull out really quick and play with a group of friends. This is one of those games that you probably play a couple rounds at a time. It's only like 45 minutes of gameplay, but I would recommend getting this even if you don't have an extensive library. If you're not familiar with the Valeria series, this is a really great place to start for it. And if you're just looking for something to ruin some friends' lives with, but have a good time while you're doing it, I would highly recommend this game for that. Anyone can play this one, and it's got some pretty solid replay value to it. The expansion stuff adds some really neat new flares to it, like events going on and things like that, and monuments. So play this for a little bit, add the other ones into it after. It's really, really fun. Guys, thanks for watching. Head on over to our forums, our Discord, anywhere. It's all linked below on our page, as well as our store, which has all kinds of different cool t-shirts and stuff in it. You should go there too. Check it out, and feel free to email us, inbox@CritTV, if you have games that you want to see as a suggestion later on for subsequent analogs. We'd love to hear from you. See you online. They don't never play Cards Against Humanity with comedians, guys. I'm telling you flat out. Never ever play it with a room full of comedians. It'll be the worst experience of your entire life.